Bittercup Sweet Aftertaste, where did the title come from? I thought long and hard about what to call the book. First thing I want to do is I want to show you this picture, this very large picture, so you can understand where the bitter cup part comes in. As you know, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And this picture is of the actual Sinai desert. Now you all know the story about how the children of Israel left Egypt, went through the wilderness on the way to the promised land. This is what they walked through. Or better still, this is where they got stuck. All right? Just so you can have a geographical reference, on this side is where Egypt exists. This side is what is called the promised land. This is the part this is where God was taking them. All right? This was their earthly destination. Egypt, wilderness, promised land. One thing we have to keep in mind is that the only way to get to the promised land is through the wilderness. The only way is through the wilderness. Now, you may say, okay, well, I haven't been out here. What does this have to do with me? Well, I'm going to explain what this has to do with us in 2015. The children of Israel were a physical people. They lived in a physical place called Egypt. The Lord led them through a physical wilderness. This wilderness, it looked just like that. And his objective was to lead them into a physical promised land. Unfortunately, when they got into the wilderness, I'm sure that they had a culture shock, because what you have to understand is that even though they were slaves in Egypt, if you ever go to Egypt, it's lush, it's tropical. Even if you're a slave, it's an attractive, pleasant place. There are palm trees. It has some appeal. So imagine what it must have felt like the second they're excited, and we're going to be free, and we're going to get to the promised land, and we're going to have our own everything, our own lives, our own crops, our own land. And then you step into this. So imagine what that felt like, that initial, you got to kind of put yourself in their shoes, that initial shock. Well, you're probably thinking, because you've never been out of Egypt before, so you don't even know that there's anything like this. So you're probably thinking, okay, we can do this for a couple of days, you know, but not much longer than that. In fact, we're sure hoping somebody's got a map, because this isn't going to work for very long. So they got out into the wilderness, and they got stuck. What they didn't understand is that God had a specific purpose for leading them through the wilderness. It's called really God's school of adversity. And just like he led them, the physical people, through a wilderness, those of us in 2015 who've given our lives to Christ go through a spiritual wilderness. And it may feel just like that felt to them. It's also referred to as God's school of adversity. In order for a person to reach the promised land, they have to go through the wilderness. And there's some specific things that the Lord wants us to learn in the wilderness. And until a person masters those lessons, they stay there. And that's the reason the vast majority of Christians are still in the wilderness, because they haven't mastered those lessons yet. So, the reason I call this bitter cup sweet aftertaste is I went on a 20-plus year journey through a spiritual wilderness. And it wasn't pleasant, but it wasn't supposed to be. There's nothing in the Word that tells us that we're going to find it enjoyable, but it is oh so beneficial. So once we've gone through it and we come out on the other end, we can say that it's left a sweet aftertaste, but that's only after we've mastered the lessons.